So today we are lucky because we have a special guest, Carter Hogan, one of our producers on Team Supertramp. Essentially everyone on our team produces, but Carter Hogan and Seth Jones are our two main producers. So Carter, tell us what a producer does.
This is going to be a long one, guys. Producers do a lot, so get out your pens and paper, but the first thing I want to say is a producer doesn't do everything. If you are a producer, you don't do it all, but you are in charge of making sure that everything gets done. From making sure people have food and water, to locations, to permits, to actors, hotels, flights. If any of that goes wrong, it's your fault. You don't have to do it all, but you have to make sure somebody else is doing it and that it gets done right. So that's the main thing that a producer does, is everything. Devin will give me a creative idea and say, all right, here's the pitch. We are going to go and we're going to throw a football out of an airplane and we're going to land in a stadium and score the world's longest touchdown pass. It's going to happen in about 3 weeks. Let me know if you need anything. And from there, Devin doesn't really have anything to do with making the project happen. He just is total creative world, because if Devin's doing both, if he's trying to cover logistics and flights and athletes and dates, then he can't focus on the creative, and the creative suffers. So now we have a good system where Devin is only focusing on, or your director, your DP, that team, they only focus on creative. They don't have to worry about anything else, and we get a by far better product than if Devin has to do it all. So now we split that up, and yeah, your job is to make sure that the whole project happens seamlessly without any flaws. And through the course of this vlog, we're gonna go through everything you have to do to make that happen.
So Carter was just talking about producing our Super Bowl video. So I want to walk you through the process from beginning to end, because so many of you are requesting that. Now keep in mind that each of these projects is different, the way they happen, and kind of producers, because it's within the YouTube world, they're not always typical producers. A lot of times they're filling other roles, more roles than normal producers would within the Hollywood structure. But if you want to learn about Hollywood producers, I'll leave a link below. But we're talking specifically about YouTube producers. Fills a lot of the same roles as Hollywood, but also kind of takes things to a different level because they have to be super well-rounded. Carter Hogan, he knows how to direct, he knows how to edit, he knows how to shoot, all those things, and that's kind of what's happening right now, as far as the new age, as far as they have to be able to do every shoe. They have to wear every hat. They have to wear every hat, producers nowadays.
Wear lots of hats.
Lots of hats. The more hats, the better. So Carter, talking about producing the Super Bowl spot, tell us how that process started.
All right, so just going off what Devin was saying, Hollywood producing, YouTube producing, very different, but the two worlds do collide. And I think the best example of that is the Super Bowl shoot, where we were really taking it to the next level, as far as not just making a YouTube video, but it was a full-on production. I think Point Break that we did the month before is another great example of that. But today we're talking all about the Super Bowl shoot. So what happened was, like I said earlier, Devin came up with an idea and then I had to make it happen. So we're gonna go through everything you need to do pre-production. We're not going to go into detail about everything because that's going to come later, but here we're just going to cover everything you need to do. The first thing that I do is I look at a creative concept and I think, okay, we're going to be jumping out of an airplane. I know that I need great athletes. And so I contacted my go-to guy, Marshall Miller, little shout out for him, GoPro Bomb Squad, because I know that he can make stuff like this happen. He's who we use for all of our skydiving, squirrel shooting, base jumping. He's our go-to guy, awesome guy to work with. So that was my first thing I did, is I knew we had to have athletes to make the stunt happen. The next thing that I'm always worried about as a producer is location. After your location is locked, everything else just falls into place. Especially with the stunts that Devin wants to do, locations are a nightmare. We can't just go in a warehouse, set up a studio, like we've done here in Devin's house, and film for the week. Most of Devin's stuff happens on public land. A lot of it's in national parks, cool scenery. That stuff is not easy to get a permit for, and sometimes it's not even doable. So that's the biggest fight that I have as a producer. Maybe you guys won't have that with what you're doing, but if you're doing anything in nature like Devin does, whether it's at a lake, at a park, off a cliff, doesn't matter. That's the hardest thing for me. That's my biggest roadblock. So that was the first thing we had to do with the Super Bowl shoot, was find a location. So we had to find a stadium. We had to jump into a football stadium, and if you're working with a brand like we had a lot of stipulations on what colors the stadium could or couldn't be, where it could be. So we narrowed in on a stadium in Northern California. and we were pushing really hard for that. The first thing we had to do was get FAA permits. I'm not going to go a lot into FAA permits because I don't feel like a lot of you guys are doing skydiving videos, but it does affect if you're using a drone. Drone laws are becoming crazy right now, and so you will have to deal with FAA permits and get pilots that have their 333 exemption. Anyway, so we were shooting full head of steam for that location, and we didn't take into effect the weather. We had our FAA permits, but then we looked at the weather, and in Northern California, it rains and is cloudy every day. That wouldn't work. So about 7 days before the shoot, we had to scramble to find another location. Ended up working out. We were able to get our permits, our film permits, and our FAA permits. So that's one thing I wanted to talk about, is to get a permit to film, you often have to get 2 or 3. One of them is the FAA, I'm not going to talk about that, but you have to get a permit from the place that you're filming. In this case, it was a football stadium. We had to get their permit, and then we had to get a permit through the city that we were filming in. Okay, and in order to get the permit through the city we were filming in, we had to show them the 2 previous permits, the FAA permit and the permit from the stadium. So it's a lot to take in. It really helps a lot if you guys get help. As I said, you don't have to do this, you just have to make sure it gets done. The biggest thing I've learned in my 1.5 years of producing for Devin is that the easiest thing that I can do is get a location manager. It's not necessary for every shoot, but it helps a ton, because if we're going to another state or another country, I have never personally been there. I don't know how it works. If you get a location manager, they do cost money, but if you have a budget, it's worth it because they take care of the permits. They know the easiest way to push things through faster. In Devin's case, everything is fast. We have about 2 to 3 weeks to produce something, and most government agencies require at least 30 days for a film permit. I've never had 30 days notice on a shoot, so that doesn't work for me. Location managers make that happen.
So Carter produced the Super Bowl video. I have a couple questions for him, and I think are kind of common questions that we get asked a lot. For something like the Super Bowl video, what was the hardest part for you to make that happen?
For the Super Bowl video, there was so many moving pieces. So that's the next thing that we were going to go into. Think about it. We had 7 skydiving athletes. One of them was a cameraman. We had a military plane, C-130. We had a helicopter that had the shot over Cineflex camera mount on the front of it. And we had Joe Montana. We had gaffers. We had everything. That's it. Just the airplanes alone were so many moving parts. So the first thing that I had to do was find a hangar that would let us do everything we wanted to do, you know, within an airport operations, because you can't just walk out onto the airstrip of a lot of airports. So we had to find an airfield in the middle of nowhere that would let us put all of these planes on the runway, and not only film from them and set up and put lights around it, but then skydive on pretty much onto the airport. So that was the hardest thing, is so many moving pieces and coordinating all of those to go together.
For this Super Bowl video, because we knew it was going to be played on national television, I knew for myself that I wanted us to do everything we can to make it the best it could be, even if that meant breaking even with our budget that we had. So for us, our goal was to make the best video possible, even though that didn't mean we'd be making money off of that. So kind of with that in mind, we wanted to go all out on everything. We could have done this video filming it from a helicopter. We decided, hey, we've never shot with the shot over. That's like the ultimate dream for me as far as aerial cinematography. So we paid the money, the extra money, which was a lot of extra money. We paid for that so we could get those really cool aerial shots that you saw on the video. Another thing that we paid for is, like, I could have GoPros strapped to a couple different people, but let's get someone that knows what they're doing, that works in the Hollywood film industry world, and have him film the video jumping out of the airplane. And let's not just hook a GoPro to his head, let's actually hook a Red Dragon to his head. So we did that as well. So all that comes at a price, at a higher price. But we knew we didn't want to just make the same style of videos all the time. We wanted to raise the bar and get to the next level so we could get bigger opportunities. And that's a big thing with producing as well, is they have to oversee the budget to make sure all the pieces of the puzzle will fit together with the price that we have. And it was awesome, the people we had working with us, but it was just everyone coming together to make that budget work. So for me as a director or a filmmaker, I kind of try and wear as many hats as I can because I love the whole process. It's finding a producer that I trust, because that means I don't have to stress about that anymore. I couldn't make the Super Bowl video happen on my own. There's no way. way. I had to have a producer, someone that I completely trusted, had full faith in, that he could take the vision that I had and make it so much bigger and better than I could have ever dreamed of. So I gave Carter the pretty much impossible task of, hey Carter, we have to pull this video off essentially in a couple weeks, make this happen. I don't know how you're gonna make it happen, but you have to make that happen. So that's when Carter comes in. He takes that vision, and it's often written on a paper, or it's email in our case, because paper is so the 80s. So he'll take that idea, that concept, and he'll make it so much bigger. He'll contact the right people. They'll all come together to make it happen. And then the idea behind an awesome producer is the day of the shoot, they're hardly working at all because everything has been so prepared that once the shoot happens, he just has to sit back and relax. There's always problems that happen on set. The producer always has to kind of fix that, but that's the general idea behind it, is that a true producer, they don't have to work like crazy as far as running around all over the place, because all the work is done in pre-production. And I feel those are some of the best producers that I've worked with, is where I can show up on set, everything's taken care of, and you kind of see them relax, even though they're not truly relaxing. But that's kind of the general idea that I've gathered as I've worked with many producers from all over the place. So, and another big thing too is finding a producer that has the same vision or can create that same vision within their head, because if they go a completely different way, it's like, why are you working with them to begin with? They're there to work together to make something even bigger and better than what you could ever dream of. And some of the producers I've worked with, Jacob Schwartz, Seth Jones, Buddy, and right, those are all amazing producers where I give them a concept and then they make it so much better than I could ever dream of. So just keep that in mind with the people that you're working with. I know most of you are in the same position I was 5 years ago, 3 years ago for that matter, where I didn't have a budget. So it was like, how am I gonna make this happen? How am I gonna bring on a producer? So it really came down to just finding my friends that I enjoyed working with, and we worked together with $0 budgets, and as we worked together, things got bigger and better, and we got budgets eventually, and then I brought on those same people that were invested with me as far as when we had $0 budget. So just find the right people to bring up together, and as you rise together, you both benefit together. So that's another key thing with working with producers, is finding the right fit and finding someone that you trust. So that is our tutorial as far as kind of an overview on a producer. We wanted to share a real life example so you can kind of see what they do. There's a lot more involved with producers, and we'll save that for tomorrow's video, which we're going to be talking about waivers and release forms and how you get permission to use someone's image, especially when you're doing it commercially. So that is it. Let's have Carter come back on stage, because we have this amazing stage.
Zelda room.
So the Zelda room. So that's the new name. Actually,
can I say something?
Yes.
I just want to echo what Devin said. As a producer, you're gonna have an inner struggle the whole time because you have to be creative and logistical at the same time. So your biggest struggle is going to be spending your money wisely, but still making the best possible product that you can. There's a lot of times where you can cut corners to save a couple bucks, couple $1,000, couple pennies, doesn't matter. Or you can spend it and have that much better of a project. It's figuring out where to save and where to spend and fighting that inner struggle. I deal with it every day, and I don't have a solution for you, but just know your budget, stay within it, but at the same time, go big. Don't be afraid to dream big, as Devin always does and forces me to do, and make the best video that you can.
Super thanks to Carter for being our special guest for today. He is going to go back to producing right now. Actually, he's going to go back to shooting another tutorial video with me. But thanks so much for watching. Over and out.
Yeah, wham, bam, Supertramp. And I tipping up my hat while I boost the fans. And I hover up top, can you feel the noise? All the girls scream now cause they want the boys. Yo, making all the clouds looking like a big joke. When I run so fast and I sing so low. And you never wanna mess with me, you're just dissing me. I just set me free, so just stop. We cool, we hot, we